It was supposed to be a normal evening. Christopher Newsom, a kind and ambitious young man, met his girlfriend Channon Christian, a bright and vibrant college student. Laughter and plans for the night filled the air. Unaware of the darkness that was about to descend, within hours, both would fall victim to one of the most brutal and senseless crimes Knoxville had ever seen. Their lives, full of promise and love, would be stolen, leaving a community shocked and grieving. This is a story of terror, loss, and the unimaginable cruelty of human violence. Stay with us and subscribe to Shadow's Crime Here, as we uncover the chilling details behind the tragic murders of Channon Christian and Christopher Newsom. Knoxville, nestled in eastern Tennessee, is often seen as a quiet, peaceful college town, home to the University of Tennessee. Its tree-lined streets and residential neighborhoods create the impression of safety and normalcy. Compared to many U.S. cities, Knoxville is considered relatively calm, a place where people leave doors unlocked and students walk to campus without fear. But beneath this serene image, darkness can appear when least expected. The city's calm would soon be shattered by a crime so brutal, it would haunt the community for years. Christopher Newsom was born in 1984 in Knoxville, a hard-working, family-oriented young man studying carpentry at a local community college. Known for his kindness and determination, Chris had a bright future ahead. Channon Christian, born in 1986 in Texas, moved to Knoxville at age 12. A sociology student at the University of Tennessee, she was outgoing, joyful, and beloved by friends and family. Together, they were a young couple full of plans, laughter, and hope, unaware that their ordinary lives were about to collide with unimaginable horror. Christopher Newsom and Channon Christian met in November 2006 through family friends. From the very beginning, they bonded over shared interests and quickly became inseparable. Their relationship progressed rapidly, filled with laughter, late-night conversations, and plans for the future. Within just 2 months, they were talking about marriage, dreaming of building a life together. Everyone who knew them, Chris and Channon were the perfect young couple full of hope, love, and trust. On the night of January 6, 2007, Chris and Channon planned to attend a friend's birthday party. Chris agreed to pick Channon up from her home, and the evening started like any normal night out. But when they never arrived at the party, friends assumed they were running late or caught in traffic. Hours passed, and a quiet worry began to settle in, though no one could imagine the horror that had already begun to unfold. Around 11 p.m., Channon called her mother. In the brief conversation, she said she was fine and promised to return home by 3 a.m. At the time, it seemed like an ordinary call, a small reassurance in the night. Later, investigators discovered the chilling truth. That call was made under duress. Channon was already in danger, and the nightmare that would consume their lives and the city had only just begun. The next morning, worry turned into fear. Channon never returned home, and her workplace called to report she hadn't shown up. Families searched hospitals and clinics, hoping she had been admitted somewhere, but there was no trace. Police initially hesitated, citing the 24-hour rule for missing persons, leaving families desperate and anxious. Every passing hour intensified the feeling that something was terribly wrong. Investigators obtained Shannon's phone records, revealing the last signal near Cherry Street. Families and friends began searching the area frantically. Then came the chilling discovery. Shannon's car, abandoned on Gilder Street. The vehicle had been wiped clean, appearing almost deliberately erased of any clues. Panic and dread gripped everyone. This was no ordinary disappearance. Moments later, a railroad worker stumbled upon a burned body. Identification confirmed the unthinkable. Christopher Newsom was dead. The casual, quiet streets of Knoxville suddenly became the backdrop for one of the most brutal and shocking crimes the city had ever seen. What had started as a missing persons report now escalated into a full-scale murder investigation. Forensic teams examined the abandoned car with painstaking detail. Inside, there were no fingerprints belonging to the couple. Cigarette butts were found, none belonging to Chris or Channon. Mud tracked throughout the vehicle hinted at a struggle, a crime committed outside the familiar streets they once walked. An envelope, recovered from the car, was sent for testing, holding the potential to unlock crucial pieces of this horrifying puzzle. The autopsy painted a horrifying picture. Christopher Newsom had been restrained and bound, showing evidence of a severe and prolonged assault. Multiple gunshot wounds confirmed the brutal nature of his murder. After death, his body was set on fire, a shocking attempt to destroy evidence. Every detail revealed the calculated and cruel mindset behind this crime. leaving investigators and the community in disbelief. The investigation finally gained momentum when fingerprints recovered from the crime scene were matched to LaMarcus Davidson. A known criminal, Davidson had recently been released from prison and lived just minutes away from Cherry Street. Suddenly, the case had a suspect, someone with motive, opportunity, and a violent history, bringing both hope and dread to the families searching for answers. Police executed a search warrant at Davidson's residence, uncovering chilling evidence. Inside, they discovered Channon Christian's body inside a trash container, confirming the worst fears of her family. Personal belongings of both victims were recovered, each item telling a fragment of the violent events that had unfolded. The scene cemented the horrifying reality: this was no random act, it was deliberate, calculated, and carried out by multiple individuals. The investigation revealed a group of perpetrators responsible for the brutal crimes: LaMarcus Davidson, Elvis Cobbins, George Thomas, Eric Boyd, and Vanessa Coleman. Each member played a role in the terrifying events that night, forming a network of violence that had terrorized two innocent young lives. Their involvement would eventually lead to arrests, trials, and convictions, but the scars of their actions would remain forever. Vanessa Coleman provided chilling testimony in court. She claimed she had been threatened and forced to stay while the crimes unfolded. Her statements detailed the assaults, confirming that Christopher Newsom had been forcibly taken away from the house. Her account gave investigators and the jury an inside look at the terror that consumed that night, painting a horrifying picture of control, fear, and violence. Christopher Newsom's final moments were cruel and deliberate. He was forced to walk to the nearby railroad tracks, where he was shot and killed. In a final act meant to destroy evidence, his body was set on fire. The brutality and premeditation of his murder shocked the community, leaving a lasting mark on the city of Knoxville. Channon Christian was held captive for hours, subjected to extreme abuse inside the house. She suffered unimaginable violence before being suffocated in the same home where her night began so normally. Vanessa Coleman described being left alone with her during the final moments, providing a harrowing account that would become central to the prosecution's case. All suspects were arrested within 24 hours, bringing immediate relief but also widespread fear. Media coverage amplified the horror. As residents grappled with the sheer brutality of the crimes, authorities emphasized that this case did not represent the broader community, but the shockwaves of the murders would leave Knoxville shaken for years. The trials concluded with severe sentences for the perpetrators. George Thomas and Elvis Cobbins received life without parole. Vanessa Coleman was sentenced to 53 years in prison. LaMarcus Davidson received the death sentence, while Eric Boyd was not charged at this stage. Justice was served, but the scars left on the victims' families and the community would remain permanent even after the trials. The case continued to make headlines. Judge Richard Bumgardner, who had presided over the original proceedings, was exposed for drug addiction and misconduct. His actions cast doubt on every case he handled, including the Newsom Christian trials. As a result, new trials were ordered, leaving families and the community anxious but determined that justice must prevail. The scandal added another layer of complexity to an already tragic story, showing that corruption and negligence can ripple through the legal system. The retrials brought renewed scrutiny and accountability. Vanessa Coleman was resentenced to 35 years, with her parole later denied, ensuring she would remain behind bars. The other defendants received similar sentences, reaffirming the severity of their crimes. Eric Boyd, however, remained uncharged at this stage, leaving questions about the full scope of involvement. For Knoxville, the retrials were a reminder that even when justice seems delayed or compromised, persistence and vigilance can ensure accountability. Years after the murders, a major breakthrough came through advances in DNA technology. Eric Boyd, previously uncharged, was finally linked to the crime. George Thomas testified against him, providing critical insight into the events of that night. The forensic evidence, combined with testimony, led to Eric Boyd's conviction, and he was sentenced to life without parole. Science had finally filled gaps left decades earlier, ensuring that all involved would face justice. LaMarcus Davidson, who had received the death penalty, filed an appeal that brought families back into the courtroom. Months of tension followed as the legal process unfolded. In January 2026, the appeal was denied, confirming the original sentence. Families could finally see the conclusion of the long journey for justice, though the loss and pain would never fully disappear. Justice took years, but it ultimately prevailed. Christopher Newsom and Channon Christian are remembered not just for their tragic deaths, but for the lives they lived, the love they shared, and the legacy of awareness they left behind. Their story reminds us of the enduring impact of violent crime and the importance of vigilance, accountability, and compassion. If this story moved you, subscribe to Shadow's True Crime here. Like, comment, and share, help us keep uncovering the truth behind the darkest cases.